Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Talking Point. Welcome from the sister isle. Of course, another day in paradise, and paradise extends to both islands of our twin island nation. My name is Sean Michael Small. Alongside me is my co-host, Mr. Keaton Shaw. We are both, of course, via Zoom for somewhat different reasons, but regardless of the reasons, the show must go on. And Keaton, I know you want to wait until the end, but I can't help but bring it up at the start of the show just to remind viewers, or at least to say that we have not forgotten. The Commission of Inquiry, the Newsday today had an article that basically summed up some of the important points, not necessarily all, and I still have to go back to the fact that I cannot stand what seems to me like, and it is to be somewhat expected, but we see responsibility, I should say, being tried to push on to LMCS alone, when I believe the situation is more complicated than that. And some of the excuses actually infuriate me. It's a catch-22, right? Do I read more? Do I get more infuriated? And to be fair, an emotional response, ironically speaking, because that's one of the things that I guess you could say is being debated or discussed over this whole scenario, the emotional response of wanting to go rescue the divers. Or as I would say, the emotional response of Mr. Piper not have any guts to even make an attempt to see what the conditions are before calling off the rescue, which technically by contract he is not responsible for, but that's a whole other matter entirely. Keaton, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this so far, but I just wanted to remind people that, hey, it's paradise. We just had Christmas. There are a lot of families in tragedy through this holiday season. We spoke about a couple yesterday, and we have to remember the 4 families today, or you could even argue 5 families. Mr. Boudram, his immediate family, is not necessarily coming out of this unscathed either.
Well, good morning, Sean, and good morning to all of you. First of all, yes, we're via Zoom this morning. Thank God for technology, because we're fortunate enough to see that beautiful view behind you and hear the birds. Whilst I haven't had water since Christmas Eve, so dealing with that situation. But nonetheless, with respect to the Paria divers, that tragedy in particular, it is ongoing, and I always said I wanted to wait until the very end of the Commission of Inquiry to fully analyze it. But what we have so far, I don't think I expected anything different with respect to a blame game. You're going to see a blame game from LMCS. You're going to see a blame game from Paria. OSHA in itself has suggested that both companies share responsibility. So, quite frankly, it's rather confusing, disheartening, and at times heartbreaking. No, I shouldn't even say at times. I should say all the time. I can hear the cockroach behind you, by the way. It's a wonderful way to wake up on a morning. But as I was saying earlier, with respect to this entire situation, the mere fact that the families have to live through this once more, should we have expected different? No. Once we called for a commission of inquiry, because the entire nation was calling for a commission of inquiry, and I think the entire nation wanted a public hearing. With that, the families will have to relate each detail. And yes, whilst I do feel sorry that they have to go through this, and I can only imagine what they're feeling and what they're facing this morning, knowing that it's the first Christmas without their family members, and knowing leading up to Christmas, these details were relayed once more. It's needed. It's necessary. It's very unfortunate, Sean, but it's absolutely necessary. I don't expect anything else but the blame game to come out, and that's why I'm waiting to the very end.
Well, one thing is the fact that because it's political appointees, one must question, not necessarily assume, but question, would the government even support any sort of further investigation into the matter? Because I'm not saying that what happened was criminal, but one could argue that perhaps that should at least be looked into on both sides of the equations. Again, this doesn't mean that just because I have my eyes directed at Paria does not mean that I'm saying, oh, LMCS is completely off the hook. No. there's responsibility for a lot of different points in the situation. That said, initially, I was under the impression that part of the limitations on equipment was that with diving hard hats, we were limited to 100 feet to go down into the pipe. A hard hat, of course, will allow an air hose. You don't have to carry a tank. The air is coming from above. So not only is the supply practically unlimited, there's still, or technically unlimited, there's still probably some practical limitations to how long you could be underwater in that rig. But also, you don't have the added bulk of the tank trying to go down a pipe where the diver might not even be able to turn around himself, much less, maneuver around anybody or maneuver easily around obstacles. From what I understand, and this is testimony at Paria, although I myself have been refraining from watching because it is deeply upsetting. But from what I understand, no, we had multiple hoses of, I believe, 250 feet to 300 feet available. That technically, with a follow-up question, the witness testified that yes, they could technically be attached together, which means that potentially, if the situation was one with more preparation, we would have had at least a better capacity than I thought to go down there in that pipe. Now that doesn't say where the equipment was the equipment on site in time, how easily would it have been to put together. But again, my criticism is not that there was no rescue. My criticism was that it was just called off with apparently no real attempt at trying to figure out if it can be done, how it can be done, and if it can't be done, what were the valid reasons to say no? There is no actual definitive reason outside of, well, I just thought it was not safe and I did not want more people to die. But usually, like when firefighters say, well, no, we had to pull out of the building and somebody unfortunately died, they would say, well, given the circumstance of the fire, if we continue to be in any longer, it was only seconds away from the building collapsing. It's no longer safe. We will not be able to pull any victims out anymore in time. We will just die with them. We have to evacuate the building. Something like that. Something detailed. 45 years of experience can't give us anything detailed because he himself admitted that his entire organization didn't have the expertise. So I really am curious, again, what is the final verdict, just like you? But then, of course, it goes beyond that. What really is going to come out of this commission of inquiry?
Sure.
How could change happen? Will change happen, or will this repeat itself again?
There is a possibility that an accident such as this can happen. It's what we do to avoid an accident of this magnitude or any accidents at all from occurring. Again, the thing for me is one of the conclusions that I've come to only up until this point of the Commission of Inquiry is where is the police investigation? Remember, the Commission of Inquiry doesn't have the powers to prosecute, but it will compile a report afterwards. And I don't know whether or not they will forward that report to the DPP. That report will be laid and read in Parliament. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm trying to figure out where is the police investigation in relation to this, because at the end of the day, 4 men died. 4 men died. If an individual passes away at home, and for whatever reason, you actually need the police certificate to clear it. You also need a district BMO. That has to be done. Before the body could be removed from the scene. So this is the thing with respect to police investigation. What's happening there? Why are we not being updated in relation to that? Because as much as we're following the Commission of Inquiry, again, their powers under the law, under their tenures, it's not one that is judicial. And quite frankly, I think if the police were to do an investigation, then forward their report to the DPP, then that alongside the Commission of Inquiry's report, we will have a better understanding of where we're at. But you see, this is the thing at this time. I think we're going to have to be like every other citizen in Toronto, and every other journalist. We're just going to have to sit down. We're going to have to view the Commission of Inquiry each day by day. We're going to have to analyze it. And, I know that because of the emotion involved and because of the sheer frustration, it's going to be very difficult not to jump to assumptions or jump to conclusions. But I think as best as possible, we're going to have to be very much critical in terms of our thinking and, not be irrational. We have to be rational as well. And like I said, this for me is just the families having to relive this over again. And I know I'm repeating that point, but it's because look at what they're experiencing and look at what we're feeling. You can only imagine what they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Well, so just to segue a little bit, because this is a situation I think I'm actually surprised at myself because to me, crimes against children, that was more or less one of the most horrific things that I could think of, period. This situation and how these men died, and potentially, so again, there's no definitive conclusion here, why these men died, I think actually hits a nerve harder with me than with crimes against children. That said, while that may be true, that is one incident. Hopefully, it might be preventable from similar things happening in the future. Meanwhile, just like I said, to segue a little bit, we have a priest from San Fernando calling on people to protect our children. And I think similar to this situation, similar to the commissioner, the Police Service Commission collapse situation, and a couple other big important events in our nation this year and last year. One thing that I find maybe might not be getting enough attention is the fact of to me, the increased amount of violent crime being inflicted upon children, whether it is they're the victims of a shooting, their family member in close proximity to them was the victim of a shooting, they themselves were outright killed because of the shooting, or as we saw with one case, the ongoing saga of our children's homes, accusations of grooming, touching, sexual assault, what have you. And I do wonder if not just the fact that, yes, there's a cliche, which is true, that the children are our future. It is true, right? Certain countries are feeling the consequences of that situation not working out as well as it should. But also just the sheer fact that I don't know if we are giving these important things enough attention in our national conversation. It's almost as though we're not just desensitized to crime, we are desensitized to a lot of things. And the officials, and officials doesn't just mean politicians, it just means the various people in charge, private and public, they kind of get away with more than we think.
Get away with more than we think. I mean, the system has been like this for quite some time. Doesn't make it right. But as it relates to children, I think now when you look at parents who tend to shelter their children to the extent at times one might argue they're stifling their children, they're not giving them the freedom to grow up or to live. I think we understand why now. I think we're understanding why more upset. In some instances, you're going to have mothers and fathers, families who are just going to become overprotective of their children, and that is a sheer result of this situation that we're living in. See, there's no longer that freedom for children to grow up as perhaps as we did. There's not that freedom where we could enjoy each other's company and each other's time outside of the home, or outside of any other safety net, simply because of these times that we're living in. I mean, the biggest thing when I was growing up is, as soon as you turn 13 or 14, you go to Trinity Mall with your friends, or at least some malls you go with your friends. And I'm thinking now, I think a couple months ago there was one major fight in Trinity Mall amongst teenagers. There was a major fight amongst teenagers at Movie Town, Port of Spain. And if this keeps occurring, soon you're not going to see any of these parents allowing their children to go to these places. In terms of murder, in terms of violent crimes, in terms of the home, imagine within a home, a home that may be even partly funded by the government. Um, there's a situation there which I don't think has been resolved as much as it's been spoken about in the media. You realize, as with everything here in Trinidad and Tobago, it died a natural death. The
Yeah.
thing is that even children are not safe within that setting. They're vulnerable, and this is the thing: children cannot protect themselves. Children cannot protect themselves. So, because of that vulnerability, it makes them easy targets. And this is why I was asking the acting ASP last week if there's no longer a code of conduct amongst criminals, because you would often hear that if a criminal were to interfere with a child in whatever manner, if he's caught and if he's sent to prison, the prisoners will deal with him. The thing is, we're hearing more and more of children dying because of a stray bullet, because they're part of an intended target. But criminals are just spraying bullets, so it doesn't matter who gets hit as long as the target gets hit. This is a situation which supposedly happened amongst a mother and an 18-year-old baby. The father was in hospital. I mean, this happened recently. Was a 19-year-old boy and his father, who was the intended target in Piaku. So there's no longer that criminal code of conduct. If a child is there, who cares? Once we get our target.
We have to take a break, but you realize what happens now. Now that you start off with unintended consequences or casualties among children, and then the victim side will say, hey, you killed one of my kids, I had to kill one of your kids. And all of a sudden, it goes beyond now a gang war about criminal resources and business. Now it's a blood feud. It's Hatfields and McCoy, Trini style. And those sorts of things, they potentially don't have an end. With a gang war, you can have a victor, but when you have a vendetta, you could be bruised, battered, your organization, your gang, it could be defunct. But that level of motivation to rise back up and to strike back, that might never go away, and that might perpetually drive a different level of crime that we haven't seen. Okay, we have the ASP later. I don't know if you're willing to speak on this, but it is, we had another regimental bullet apparently found at a crime scene again, so had a question on that. But there's some other political stories when I get to first. When we come back after the break, we'll get into those on Talking Point WESN. This is your December 29th edition. Last Thursday of the year, folks. Woo! We'll be right back.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Making your home a work of art. Step into a spacious place of creative ideas for your home space. Our floor and wall tiles and natural stone is ideal for any use you need in your home. Toilet, bathroom sets and vanities lend design to your creativity, while jacuzzis and shower enclosures create the mood for dwelling on life's pleasures. Lamps and lighting fixtures add ambience and memorable pictures. Making your home a work of art. Oceans Industrial Complex, Union Road, Marabella.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. PCU Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero interest
interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Welcome back to Talking Points. And as I'm listening to the cockatoo making their noise in Sean's background this morning, you may be hearing it. I remember the Prime Minister suggesting that when he was growing up, he had a very difficult time planting peas into it because cockatoo used to come and eat up almost everything. And that's just one difficulty, I suppose, as being a farmer, because as mentioned yesterday from our caller in Miaru, who has indicated that he's a farmer, there is major difficulties with all things farming here in Tanzania, which we are aware of, whether it be through infrastructure, drainage, or green loss, or even just the cost of fertilizers and products necessary to conduct business. Now, there is an article in today's Newsday newspaper, which Sean and I were actually looking at, and we thought that as the year is coming to an end, it's another year in which farmers have faced increased difficulty, which in return has led to strain on the population in terms of prices. You see it trending on social media all the time. I think yesterday I read one particular post in which an individual was complaining that it's $100 for a bag of green peas now, which is why I suggested that salt and black pepper will become a norm just now. Food in Tobago is becoming ridiculously expensive. And even me suggesting that is entirely wrong. It is ridiculously expensive. It's not becoming ridiculously expensive. Chicken, pumpkin, tomatoes, sweet peppers, pimentos, etc. It's very difficult to even be vegetarian now, let alone try to be healthy. But according to farmers, even though that they were allocated 500 million over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic to ease their strain, they actually have not felt that relief. One of the farmers estimated that the Association of Gillingham Junction Farmers, which is made up of roughly 200 members, they're facing losses of up to 100 million. He says they've regularly have to increase their prices between 200 and 300%, and this is still going to go up because their drains have not been desilted for 8 years. Infrastructure-wise, it's poor. Pre-Delasny is still a big problem. He's also suggesting that the allocation of 795,240,000 to the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, which was announced in this year's budget, is simply not enough. Because there are instances and situations where money such as this magnitude or even more has been allocated, but farmers are actually not experiencing any of the relief associated with what the government has put forward, what the government has suggested or said. And up until this point, actually, they are suffering because all these programs that are available are, and according to the president of the association, not farmer-friendly. Sean, this is interesting because we know that programs and subsidies are available. We know that grants are available, but as he suggested, they're not farmer-friendly. I'm trying to figure out what he means by farmer-friendly, but he goes on to explain that in order to have applying for any loan from the Agricultural Development Bank, you need to have proof of tenureship. So in other words, you need to have proof of owning the land. He says roughly 60% of farmers within the industry do not have land tenure to be registered. And that in itself is an issue.
It's funny and sad at the same time that, to me, I should not be surprised because some of the issues we have from other situations they're very similar to this one. It's some of the very basic things that we've been talking about, ad nauseum here on Talking Point. What am I saying? Well, let me use this example. Most recently, and I apologize if it seems like I'm picking on him sometimes, but the minority leader of the THA, Mr. Kelvin Morris, his most recent reported words, I would say, are not unique to him. Let's not say that this is just him saying some foolishness and he's tripping. No. This is what our politicians, I believe, at least to some extent, think that the population wants, because this is what the population tends to vote for. So they're signaling this is what we want. And the politicians, it's not that the politicians are foolish, rather it's that they're weak, in my opinion, for giving into this too much. You could give into it some, but not all of it. You don't throw the baby with the bathwater. And what he's basically saying is, it's a simple line, and it might seem innocuous to you, but to me, it bothers me. He basically said that we need to, let me just get the headline. Here's the headline. Our focus will be on the vulnerable, right? Using various agencies of state to render support to those most vulnerable in the society. That is good. That sounds good, right? Especially with COVID, we need to do that. The problem is that tends to be all we do. And I think it goes back to the farmers' complaints. That mindset we see in everything. In everything. How does that play out with regards to agriculture? Well, there'll be grants. Now, first of all, the joke is, with all of these grants, there were problems accessing it, not just with the agriculture ones, right? But at a time when food security was critical, when every single economist and biologist and UWI professor that had an opinion on the subject, more or less, from what I understand, basically said this should be a priority. And the government more or less did nothing on the priority. We got a new Minister of Agriculture, don't really hear much. And the funny part about that line where they say that it's not farmer friendly, for all we know, the Ministry of Agriculture technocrats might be doing a lot of work, but because it's not communicated by the cabinet, because cabinet controls communication, not the individual ministers, we don't know. We don't know, so we can't say. But what we do know is the results on the ground, as perceived by the farmers, is that they're not really feeling any help, and they're feeling a lot of strain. And again, so we have these grants and all the most vulnerable in help. Here's the trick. If you concentrate on trying to ease up all the time, and you do nothing for long-term development to help the overall economy and system to allow the most vulnerable better opportunities, not the rich people, to allow the most vulnerable better opportunities to help themselves, first of all, they will be perpetually in need. And we've discussed that. You said it already. You think that to some extent it is done to some extent intentionally to create dependency. But further on, by just putting this money into the economy, giving it to people who it's not that they don't want to produce, but they don't necessarily have, they complain about infrastructure, they're complaining about support. They don't necessarily have the systems in place to allow them to produce. But we're throwing money at the problem for them to spend. It creates an imbalance in the economy, and it further drives inflation. It further drives an unnatural balance point that harms the economy, that makes life in the long run more difficult. All of these things basically mean that the dependency will last probably far longer than you would expect. Because the key is, you can't just spend money but not have the economy produce anything. If you're producing the same amount of minimal things because people can't start up their business, can't generate a product or a service, we just asking for more inflation. Because it's the same amount of goods and services, but more people now have money to buy it. This is not a long-term solution, but this is the mentality of the government, of the politicians in opposition as well. Probably upcoming parties hopefully don't suffer from this, and the voters, because the voters don't understand why long-term this is bad, and this is why you go back now to the leaders who's supposed to be guiding their voters, because voters not going to know everything perfectly.
we also have to understand, and I think we must acknowledge in its entirety that, first of all, food inflation has jumped to 11.6%. I think pre-budget it was something like 5.7%. That's a massive jump. The thing is that with food inflation rising to that, this is why imports are going to seem a lot cheaper than local produce, because you're importing in bulk. It's always going to seem a lot cheaper. Whilst down here, farmers are struggling and it's difficult. The reason why society is not realizing the situation with respect to agriculture, land, and fisheries here in Trinidad is because, as I've always suggested, for as long as the people in Trinidad have gotten to the stage that they no longer care where it comes from or where they get it or how they get it, as long as they get bang for their buck. If they go to the supermarket and they see a pumpkin for $20 a pound, they don't know where the pumpkin came from. It's imported. It's imported. It's full of chemicals. It's not organic. Versus local produce down here, which is $45 a pound. They're going to take up that $20 a pound, and that's the thing. For as long as there are cheaper alternatives available on the market, regardless of its background, they don't care. They're not going to bother. And this is the thing. We in Trinidad have become, to a certain extent, so lethargic in our mindset and in our approach. And we seem to forget what is the more important things. For example, you thought, at least I thought I was seeing more and more people going to markets, at least during Christmas time. From what I understand, it was bad. It was actually really bad. People couldn't go to the local market because it was simply too expensive. Speaking to one of our directors in WESN, he said he went to the Chipotle market, and for a bundle of salmon, I think he said he was paying $200, if I'm not mistaken. And that's absolutely ridiculous for a bundle of salmon. And we're talking about the big wholesale bundle. That's absolutely expensive. So these basic little things are going to increase in price, and we're going to continue to import alternatives. We're going to continue to import cheaper products. Our foreign exchange spending in relation to food is going to grow, and it's a chain reaction. So again, as 2022 comes to an end, what have we really done? And I'm not speaking about just from a government standpoint, but a national standpoint, as a nation. What have we done in terms of the local food, local agricultural industry? Have we really supported it? Have we really pushed it? Have we really given it trust? People have decided that they're going to start doing their own home garden over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. Where are we with that now? So overall, I don't see the situation getting better. Even the IDB predicts that in 2023, even though there's going to be growth for Trinidad and Tobago, there's also going to be an increase in fuel prices and a further increase in fuel prices and a further increase in food prices.
Well, folks, we have to take a break because we want to give the acting ASP as much time as possible. But I'll just say this though. Here's a question for you. Are you satisfied with the measures put in place to try to deal with food inflation? As far as I'm aware, all we got is more of the same. Transfers and subsidies, not necessarily anything
They sound good on paper.
sustainable or substantial.
They sound good on paper, Sean. They sound very good. It sounds like a very good newspaper headline. It sounds good coming out from a minister's mouth. But at the end of the day, if the farmers are not feeling it, if the farmers are not benefiting from it, what's the point?
What's the point? Exactly. What have we actually achieved with regards to trying to mitigate food inflation? I don't know. Doesn't seem like much. Public or private. Let's be real. At some point, we do have to think whether the government is good or bad. We have to do some of it ourselves because we can't expect the government to figure out everything for us. Come now. We're adults, not so? Folks, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by acting SP Ashraf Ali, who will be in studio, while Keaton and I will be enjoying the comforts of our own Zoom calls. Stay tuned for Talking Points on WESN, your content capital.
Your home a work of art. Step into a spacious place of creative ideas for your home space. Our floor and wall tiles and natural stone is ideal for any use you need in your home. Toilet, bathroom sets and vanities lend design to your creativity, while jacuzzis and shower enclosures create the mood for dwelling on life's pleasures. Lamps and lighting fixtures add ambience and memorable pictures.
Horse-and lights, tiles and bath, making your home a work of art.
Hosins Industrial Complex, Union Road, Marabella.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Better Value Limited has been making gift giving easier and more affordable for over 26 years. Power tools, indoor, outdoor furniture and accessories, mini appliances, designer fragrances, houseware and home decor products, and all your bridal registry items. Now in stock, our stylish loft bed and study desk combo unit for just $16.50. Better Value Limited. Call 235-3709 or visit us at Princestown or Gulview, or check our Facebook page.
Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
So, Simone, in these times, things are very difficult. Life has changed dramatically.
Many people have experienced mental health issues for the first time. So people who have just managed to keep anxiety at bay are experiencing a lot of anxiety now.
I am talking with another one of the major pillars of the women's senior national team. Her name is Ria Belgrave. She's actually center defense. Ria is now part again of the CONCACAF preparation for the World Cup 2023. What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN. So as much as Sean and I this morning were talking and probably at times rambling, it's just the frustration, I suppose, given that 2022. I mean,
speak for yourself.
What would be one word that you would use to describe 2022? I tell you what, think about that. So many come to mind. What's the most appropriate? But anyway, let me not delay any further in introducing to the program the acting ASP Ashraf Ali, whom we often suggest is in the hot seat. Although this morning he's probably getting away simply because we're not there to look him in the eyes and say, you're talking nonsense. but good morning, acting ASP. Welcome to the program. Hope your holidays were good.
Yeah, good morning, Keaton. Good morning, Sean. Yes, it was a very quiet holiday. All right, I hope you all enjoy your holidays.
Yes, well, some of us are still enjoying our holidays, it would seem. But nonetheless, welcome back to Talking Point. Good to see you. I'm acting ASP. The Christmas weekend, of course, again, did I expect any different? Mod with RTs, multiple shooting incidents. I think on Monday nights alone, there was 7 shooting incidents. I think 3 people died. 2022 was certainly an extremely difficult year for the citizens, and certainly for people trying to live in Trinidad and Tobago. But the police service as well, they had it very difficult. I actually had to go make a report as a police station, and the officers were they just seemed absolutely frustrated and very depressed.
Yeah, the situation is not one that anybody would enjoy at this point in time. We are on the button of our 600 murders, which is a big issue. Yes, over the weekend we had some issues with respect to road fatalities, which is in fact one of the key points that I want to bring out today with respect to the upcoming Old Year's night into New Year's activities. You know, a lot of persons will be trying to enjoy bringing in usher the New Year with parties and fetes late into the New Year's, and then you will have these persons. Some persons may try to rush home to break the New Year, and in rushing home will be speeding on the highways, trying to reach home. And then, you know, would you have the aspect of drinking and driving, utilizing drink with other concoctions combined together, with drug at the same time, with other we know people like to experiment with different type of pills, and then add all that together, having partied whole night into the morning, and driving on the highways and driving back home, tiredness coming over you. When you add those 3 elements together, that's a serious and a dangerous concoction coming together, which we know could end up in loss of lives. Now, the issue that the loss of life is one, but when you have multiple persons or innocent persons on the roadway, when you are driving on the road, you can't drive for yourself anymore. You have to drive for the other drivers, because those individuals may you may get some bad drive, and you might be the unfortunate one where you have not been drinking. You may be just going back home normal, but you are now the victim, or could be your loss of family member. And these are some of the things that we have to ensure during this period, that we have to be very, very cautious in ushering in New Year, because at the end of the day, you want to see the New Year.
Well, actually, Richmond, go ahead.
Well, one question I did have to ask, because I'm always concerned that, you know, it seems as though every 3 to 4 months, something happens and they say, oh, we'll get the police to deal with that. You know, oh, we have COVID. Okay, so the police have to deal with that. Oh, well, schools. Well, the police have to deal with that. Coast Guard doesn't seem to be guarding any borders. Not a budget on the spot. But, oh, we'll get the refereeing unit to deal with that. And I do wonder now, with regards to traffic violations, I don't know if you could admit it, you know, maybe this is not something that the service wants to admit, but personnel-wise, is the TTPS being stretched too thin, and perhaps certain functions like monitoring and enforcing traffic laws might be falling by the wayside? Because I'm just concerned there's not enough manpower to do all these things, to be in all these schools, to go to all of the hotspots, to have the manpower surge for the retail centers and shopping centers for Christmas. Then after that is Carnival, and then to deal with the border security situation. So should the country be concerned that we're asking too much of the TTPS, just manpower-wise?
Well, we have a lot on our plate, yeah, I can admit. We have a lot on our plate. We have a lot of issues surrounding us with generally, as you mentioned, a lot of those things. But at the end of the day, we have a mandate for public safety and security, and we have to carry out our mandate. As much as we would say that we are short of manpower, that is the cry that we could continue using, but we have to maximize the use of our resources in the most effective manner, and prioritize the areas that we need to put our resources in these circumstances. So we will have some concentration during the course of the year based on the type of activities that we have to redirect some of our resources. Like you see, over the Christmas period, we would have redirected a lot of the resources to some of the shopping areas and some of the high traffic areas where persons would be venturing. Coming to Carnival, we'll have to do the same, where we will have to redirect our resources again to treat with the issues of Carnival. It's all about utilizing our resources in the most effective manner. Realistically, we may not have enough manpower to do all that you have just that you're asking, or they are asking us to do on a general basis. But periodically, we do in fact have to maintain that level of professionalism and carry out our function. Look, over the weekend, coming up into the the holidays, we have the issue of fireworks, which is in fact a burning issue, continues to be a burning issue. It raises its head when it comes to independence with the fireworks display. Now, at every end of the year, the issue of these fireworks continue to be the challenge that we face. When you look at the laws on our land, under the Summary Offences Act, Chapter 1102, it specifically gives you some guidelines and what the law states as to how you use firearms and how you're not supposed to, not firearm, explosives, how you treat with the explosives. And if I want to say that under Section 991, if any person who throws, casts, sets a fire, lets off any firework within any town is liable to a fine of $1,000. Personally, I find that fine is a little too small. It should have been a little more than that, but that's just my personal view on it.
Yeah, personally, acting SP, as much as you're reading this law to me, the law doesn't make sense because at the end of the day, fireworks are available for purchase to almost anybody. And so does it really make sense having these laws when, in particular, one company is allowed to distribute fireworks to almost anybody? And at the same time, I hear people in every and any area setting up fireworks. And yet the TTPS, who may be on patrol, doesn't do anything, doesn't even bother to stop. And I've witnessed that. So does the law even make sense, acting SP?
The laws realistically needs to be revisited. And when you look at the law, 1992, section 1992 of these 1992, 100, and 101, if you read it to the letter, you would realize that almost every space in Trinidad and Tobago is a contravention of the law, right? Because they say you cannot dispose of the fireworks in any town or city of Port of Spain, San Fernando, boroughs, or any other borough as the minister may deem to be considered a borough, and within 2 miles radius of those city limits. So it really and truly, it puts almost every town, community within the prohibition of the law. That is a serious challenge for the police service, as you mentioned earlier, for us to really and truly manage this aspect of it, because the evidence to support this offense, you really and truly need, the evidence is the disposable item that they're going to use. You have to actually physically cut someone setting off this item. By the time the police officers reach the location, somebody just rested on the street, light it, and going about their business. Nobody has claimed to it, but everybody is enjoying the aspect of it. So it is a challenge.
Then authorities are contradicting the laws and by extension themselves when they allow, because the law itself speaks to the setting up of fireworks. It doesn't speak specifically to the sale of fireworks. But if it is that authorities are allowing the sale of fireworks within these areas, for example, if I go to Grand Bazaar right now, I can purchase fireworks. If I go to Marval right now, I can purchase fireworks. All of these are within residential areas.
However, under Section 10.1, under Section 10.1 of the Act, it speaks specifically to the sale other than the wholesaler and retailer. Those individuals that are set up do in fact have license to be retailers. So they can sell. So the law caters for these individuals to sell. But we also have the challenge where persons will go to a retailer, purchase from a legitimate retailer, and resell those items in their smaller places, in the other communities. This is where we also have the other challenge, because those individuals may not be licensed retailers. So you have the rippling effect. Yes, and I agree, the challenge is there. But what do we do? The police service...
I think this is a case where, and we could point out, we have a lot of laws that seem to need refinement, right? Legislation in the UK, we took it from the Westminster system. And yes, we passed legislation. But to me, this seems like one of those situations where, I don't know if it's politicians want to just let sleeping dogs lie because enough of the population are content with the status quo. Why bother trying to change it? I don't want to get into who is the fireworks dealership and what those connections might be or whatever. We could, that's a whole other rabbit hole. We do have about 4 more minutes left in this segment. Acting ASP, I do need to ask you this with regards to, this is the flip side to my earlier comment. I did say, I did ask if there was a manpower situation. Normally, then, of course, people say bring out the defense force. However, we're seeing more and more now, at the very least, defense force ammunition being used in criminal activity. And one of the people, I believe, arrested for the penny savers, Pennywise attack. I always mix up the two. Was from the regiment. I believe he was a new recruit. He wasn't like a long tenured soldier. But with that said, would there be any sort of benefits to being more stringent in the application process, both for the TTPS and for the defense force?
Well,
or would that be just compounding the problem? We would limit applications and limit the potential recruits.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the Defense Force in terms of what their systems are with respect to ammunition and those alleged items that was found in crime scenes. But what I can say for within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is that we do in fact have a measure in accountability for our particular wrongs that the officers, ammunition that they sign for and have to return. It is clearly marked that of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So we can account, we have to account for our personal wrongs within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Now, but bringing back to the issue of the legislation and with fireworks, what was mentioned, and we may not be able to deal with every single thing, but what we have to do is keep on informing the public of the risk factors associated with the use of fireworks, right? We all know that the issue with fireworks, when you're discharging these fireworks, it is loud noises. We have to look at the elderly, the children, sick persons within the residential area. Not allowing children to be in and around fireworks or using fireworks on their own, because that's a safety risk by themselves. Discharging the fireworks in built-up areas, the potential risk of houses being burnt, fires being caused, and injuries to individuals is a real risk. And all I can say right now is and inform the public is that if you're utilizing the fireworks, which is legally purchased, right, because you purchased from a legal supplier or retailer, please read the instructions how to use those fireworks, the safety requirements of it, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of risk associated with it, and safety is paramount importance with respect to that.
Well, acting ASP, we have to take a break here. But when we return, a couple more questions, and we'll open up the phone lines this morning here on Talking Point, where you can ask the acting ASP questions, and Sean and I are also here if you'd like to ask us questions or express to us your opinions or thoughts as to the latest happenings here in TNT. So we'll be right back after this.
is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Businesses complain of poor sales throughout peak shopping period. TTSPCA urges pet owners to protect animals during fireworks. Concerned Parents Movement weighs in on sex education in schools. And internationally, Hong Kong to scrap almost all its COVID rules. Now for the details. President of the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers, Vivek Charan, says this was the worst Christmas season for businesses.
The Christmas season was very disconcerting. We were quite worried. When we reached out to many of the chambers under the Confederation. And relatively early on, we realized that the volume of sales or the level of commercial activity that we were expecting was not happening.
Chairman of the Confederation, Ricardo Mohammed, said that he agreed that businesses suffered significantly this year.
I can safely tell you many businesses on our area, especially on the eastern side of Trinidad and Tobago, we have not seen a Christmas sales like this in years. This has been probably one of the worst spend in this area of the country. Yes, we know we were impacted by flooding, and that has played a significant role because a lot of people, disposable incomes were used to buy back fridge or stove or try to fix back some part of their house, as the case may be.
The TTSPCA is urging pet owners to be mindful of the distress caused to animals during fireworks and cautions them to provide the proper care and protection. Fireworks are expected to be a hit over the old years into New Year's celebrations.
Perhaps you could set up one of your bathrooms, put them in there, but it will be easy to clean up if there's any problems. But the best thing, of course, is if somebody can stay with them and comfort them, because they do come to their owners, their family members, for comfort. And do please take into account that the hearing of dogs and cats, dogs in particular, is much sharper than ours. So what is loud to us is terrifyingly loud to them.
The Concerned Parents Movement of Trinidad and Tobago is weighing in on the topic of whether sex education could be introduced in schools. President Clarence Mendoza spoke on the issue via WESN's AM Prime.
The youth arm of the Concerned Parents, they are now putting together so they can tell us some of this to the school system. So we are waiting to have a discussion with the youth arm, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth Affairs, in terms of how we can get this better off to our students. They must be aware of predators, and we are not giving them that knowledge. You know, I listened to our president, our new president of Twitter. He would have made it clear that it should be something from the home and the parents, and I quite agree. But if your parents are underage and your parents are young and younger, we don't have time for that.
But internationally, Hong Kong is dropping almost all its COVID restrictions this week, following a similar move by mainland China. From Thursday, people arriving in the city, a special administrative region of China, will no longer have to do mandatory PCR tests. The vaccine pass system will also be scrapped, but compulsory masks in public places will continue. It is a dramatic move by the city, which once had some of the toughest restrictions in the world. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Points. And just before we open up the phone lines, just to the acting ASP, I just like to, relay some positive news. I have to say that I saw the police officers out in their numbers over the course of the holiday, out on the streets. They were conducting traffic. They were talking to members of the public. It was a good sight. I was very appreciative of that. I say appreciative, even though I think it's something that should be done full time. But nevertheless, the mere fact is they were out there and their presence were felt. However, because of that, I don't know how is this correlated? I don't know if you can explain to me. When I did go to the police station to make a report, there were no officers in the police station. There was only the officer who was actually writing the report, and then there's an officer to sign the report. But there were no other officers in the police station. Could you explain to me why?
Well, currently, that may have been that a lot of the officers, that is why I've seen a lot of officers outside. We haven't a lot of putting the officers on the streets. In one hand, they want the physical presence of the officers outside, so that is the challenge that you're facing right now, that you can't leave the officers inside, so they're on the outside patrolling, being physically present on the outside. As you can see in Port of Spain, we already have this issue with the tourist arrivals, and you would see in downtown Port of Spain a lot of officers on the streets throughout the entire day. And in all the hubs and the shopping areas, police officers are outside there.
Well, acting ASP, the officer who took my report said that they're going to send a patrol just to make sure things are okay. Patrol never came up until this point, and furthermore, made calls to the police station since then. Patrols up until this point have not arrived. So, it's not that I'm trying to bombard you with this, but I'm trying to explain to you that when you suggest certain things, which I respect and I understand, it's not the reality of what's happening out there. So I hope all these things could be cleaned up, but we have to open up the phone lines now, actually. So let's, numbers up on your screen, call in and join us. Just be mindful of the time, please, ladies and gentlemen. And we do have a caller line with us from today already. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Is the officer telling us that the police services are understaffed?
Acting ASP?
I think he's asking if these services are understaffed. TTPS.
I would not say the service is understaffed. Our latest manpower audit indicated that we have a sufficient strength. The challenge. Sorry, sir, go ahead.
If it's necessary to have police officers on the streets, and it is necessary to have police officers in the office, and when one is at maximum, the other is depleted, then it's either you're understaffed or some sort of management is not taking place.
Understood. I understand where you are, your positioning, but at the end of the day, we have to maximize the use of the resources that we have. We could say that it's understaffed because you would like to see police officers in every single area in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's not going to be realistic at this point in time.
All right, caller, thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you, caller.
I think acting ASP, I think the issue is that the latest manpower audit did not include SRPs and also SRPs call out to add to the manpower available during this particular period. Because you remember, we're going from one hectic period into another, which is Carnival.
So yes, the SRPs, remember under the SRP regime, we have two types of SRPs. We have permanent SRPs, and then we have temporary or part-timers. Part-timers are SRPs who actually perform other duties, and on their spare time, when they are available, then they augment the police service. But all the regular SRPs who are currently on our strength have been called out and have been performing at the same time.
Well, we have a caller in line with us from Miaru. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning,
Good morning.
Um, in Miami, the citizens sometimes go to the police station to render some refuge of relief. And when you go there, the public service is not being addressed effectively. One, because the resources issue, and two, the training issues, because the guidance being given by the police officers is ridiculous. It's only when it have a murder or you have a serious complication with family members, then you see police presence. So when we're looking at building a relationship, we have to look at customer service. And I know that you're trying to do that, sir. I have a lot of respect for you. And I hear you cry, but it's reality that we face in society. So we like to stick up in there. And Mr. Keaton and Sean, I want to commend you this morning for bringing up and highlighting the issues of the price of vegetables. I am saying there are two entities that hold in this franchise in Trinidad and Tobago. One is the government demonstration agricultural farm officers, and there are NAMGEFCO field officers who go out there and see and have the data to show that farmers who are cultivating and records have been kept through NAMGEFCO, and the price that has been set to the public is not being sold in NAMGEFCO market. So who is really in charge of who? And then on top of that, the money is just sitting in different corners and pockets for established outlets. The farmers are not getting the return. And this we talk about customer service. They are registered farmers, and we need to reach these people. And officer, I am a citizen that support the law, but I don't agree with the customer service. Thank you, sir, and I hope that we can help in this fight against crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole, for your contribution. Acting SP, that this is the thing, this is the issue. It's. I'm appreciative of what you're suggesting. I'm appreciative of what I'm hearing for you. But the customer service on the ground is really, it's really poor. Imagine, as I suggested last week, the officer at the police station whom I called, because this is an ongoing issue. I don't know what their badge number is. I don't know what their name is. That's the first thing they're supposed to give you when they answer the phone. Didn't even bother to take any information from me. Just said, I am calling to make a report on this issue, and put down the phone. So, I don't understand the customer service of the TTPS. And I think even last week when I walked into the police station, whilst they were very friendly and helpful, it was a sight to see the police station completely empty. It's poor, because even though they're on the streets, police officers on the streets, does that mean that the station itself is vulnerable to any? There was a particular incident that happened years ago in which a police station was robbed. In instances like this, does it mean that the police station is also vulnerable to that happening again? All right, I think we have a caller on the line with us from Tobago. Acting as you could answer this question afterwards. Good morning, caller.
Good day. Good day, sir.
Good day, good day.
Morning. Now, when I go to the port, I have to show a pass and all that before I go into the port. When I go to a police station, I can walk in there with anything and not being searched, anything. I don't understand why there is not something to prevent you from going into the police station without being searched. Because if you cannot protect your home, then what can you protect? I find it.
Thank you, caller. Acting SP, the floor is yours.
Well, let me address one of your situation with the customer service. And I agree with the caller. Customer service is one of the issues that we are facing in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We have varying views on customer service, varying experiences by several persons. Yes, it may not be uniform across the board, so it's something that we continue to work on and trying to improve on it. The balance that we continue balancing here is how much you keep in the station as to how much we put on the outside. There's only so much that the police service has, and it's about utilizing the resources in the most effective manner. That is how we have to use our resources and maximize our resources the best way that we can in this situation. But the good thing about it is that on one hand, we have of persons stating that they are seeing a good presence on the outside, they are seeing police officers on the outside. And on the other hand, you got persons who go to the stations and say they're not seeing enough police officers in the station. Which one do we want is the better of the two worlds? At this point in time, I think that the number of officers on the outside, ensuring that we have a certain amount of presence and persons feel a little sense of safety and security on the outside with respect to that.
I want to apologize, folks. This is the trials and tribulations of being close to nature. Nature, unfortunately, might encroach at the most inconvenient times and ways. That said, though, I just want to point out, I do feel that perhaps this whole conversation, because I've been listening, a lot of it is symptoms of a wider problem. And I always go back to, why don't people realize that in their own job, there might be complex situations and complicated issues that are both hard to explain to the customers and difficult to sort out. And we do need to realize, well, everybody's job will have situations like that. And with regards to this specific dilemma, should we be all in the station? Should we be all out in public? Perhaps then that's not really the issue. That's just the symptoms that we see. The issue could be wider and beyond the scope, quite frankly, of individual police officers to try to solve. It could be a wider societal issue with regards to, well, now we're just trying to patch things together, but you can't patch everything at the same time.
All right, Michael Smo, we have a caller on the line. And by the way,
I know.
Nature is not encroaching upon you, or you are encroaching upon nature. Just remember that. We have a caller on the line with us from Chagonas. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Are you hearing me?
Morning.
We can hear you.
Yes.
This is really a question. There was a time, certainly in some of our youth, when someone in the village misbehaved, the parents felt that they couldn't handle the matter. They would say, look, I'm going to take you to the police station for discipline. And that was a time when police in the country matched the societal needs and wants of the society. I want to believe now that our police are not matching our needs and wants. I want to believe that our police are now incapable of coming to grips with the challenges that confront the country. If you would give me half a second again, Mr. Shah. I also want to believe that the only way the police would be in a position to do what is necessary is for us to have the kind of leadership and discipline that runs from the head to the toe of the police service. Because there's an old saying that comes out of the village again. If the fish head rotten, the body is in decay. We are in decay in our police, and unless as a society we accept that we're in trouble, we will not see light in this town. As they light up the fireworks this season, I hope at least Dr. Rowley and Hines and Young and Cox and all of them begin to understand that the responsibility to lead the police service, even though they're ducking and running and saying they don't have control over it, that is a nonsense. The police are answerable to the people, and the government and the cabinet is answerable to the people. We want answers. Superintendent, I want to thank you for the year's work that you've done with us. You have lit a lot of lights, and as a viewer and a listener, I want to tell you how grateful I am for your presence on this station. Thank you so much.
You call it more often, huh? By the way, Sean, when you're typing, if you can just mute your microphone because they're hearing the noise over the caller. But acting SB, I agree. Thank you very much for your contribution over the last year. Certainly shed a lot of light. I think it will make a lot of sense as a police officer, which quite frankly is very difficult to come by.
Thank you very much. And it's important to get the feedback from the callers, whether positive or negative. That's how we improve. I mean, we need to be getting the critical point of views from the ground for us to improve. So we take it as they come. All right. We don't expect to be coming on these platforms and expect to get everything positive. We expect the negativities, and it's a learning curve, and we have to take them with these strides and improve our customer service and our approach to our service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, we have two more callers for the two quick calls actually because we're more or less out of time. So first caller from Chaguanas, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, okay, I think we've lost that call from Chaguanas. Let's move on to our final caller for the morning from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Hi, all. Thanks. Good morning. ASP, with all due respect to that section 39, which says any person who throws cars, sets fire to a lights or fireworks within a town is liable to a fine of $1,000. That really makes no sense because to say that setting off fireworks is not illegal, purchasing from a licensed dealer is not illegal. But hey, you know, people, when you buy it, just make sure you use it in Diwali Nagar or in a savannah or you're miles away from homes, people, pets, hospitals, and the aged and be responsible. That is very dumb. Mr. Abraham, I think his name is because I called him and spoke to him already, a fireworks one. He's being allowed to sell this, make tons of money. Just say to people, oh no.
Oh no.
I think we lost. Yeah, when you hear the beep, this has happened a few times before, Diego Martin.
All right, okay. We actually took one more call. So this is the final call for the morning, actually. Final from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. Morning, ESPR.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You know, my issue is that with the TTPS, in the last 7 or 8 years, the TTPS position in the society has been expanding and expanding. When we have ills in the society, the government says we're going to put the TTPS there. That's why the TTPS is in the schools. Everything they want the TTPS to fix. And that is one of the factors that I feel is leading to this issue of when we're talking about customer service, because the TTPS has now moved from protect and serve to babysit and a lot of other things that should not be in the purview. And I'm not being selfish here, and I'm not trying to say that to make an excuse for them, because I have dealt with a lot of police officers, and in my opinion, the customer service is not as bad as some people think. Okay, we will see things on social media and stuff, and those isolated incidents sometimes put them in a bad light. I've been stopped in roadblocks. I have had to go to the police station. I have had issues where I've had to call them, and they have come and give me some very good advice. So we need to stop knocking them as much, and they are trying. Thank you, ESPR again. You all are trying. One other thing I need to say quickly is that one of the issues that we're having is some issues with Border Patrol. I think that we need to move the Coast Guard from a military establishment and bring it into the realm of something like the police service and the Coast Guard that we see in other countries. Move them out of military service, because that is not making sense for us. Thank you, gentlemen. ASP Ali, have a good New Year, and thanks. We hope we see you again next year. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, caller. I will just say this. I believe if you use the U.S. Coast Guard as an example, they are still quasi-military. They are not fully law enforcement. It's a weird balancing act that they have to do. They're part of Department of Homeland Security, not part of Justice or Defense. So, but I get your point, and I do think that there's some merit there.
Well, folks, we're out of time, actually. We're over time because let me just quickly thank the acting ASP. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence once more. Thank you very much for your service to Trinidad and Tobago and your service to Talking Point and to the viewers of Talking Point. I wish you all the very best for 2023, and we look forward to welcoming you back here on the program next year.
Just want to say one thing quick to one of our callers said, we're not getting what we want and what we need from the TTPS. I want to remind people, what we want is not always equivalent to what we need. Bear that in mind. We might expand on that at a later date.
So, gentlemen, I just want to say to all the listeners and all the callers, and to you, it was a pleasure being here for 2022. We hope to see each other in 2023. And hope to be, continue our conversations and make Trinidad and Tobago a safer place and a better place for all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Just remember, enjoy yourself for the New Year's, but enjoy it in moderation. Remember, it's just another day, and we all would like to see the day that come, the 1st of January 2023. So, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And, folks, Talking Point ends by really, recognizing the passing of beloved Calypso veteran Leroy Black Stallion Caliste. Dr. Leroy Caliste, he passed away yesterday at the age of 81. So many things I can say about this individual. But certainly, I've enjoyed his Calypso, and I've certainly enjoyed his contribution to the art form. And we thank him, and we now say to him, rest in peace, sir. Rest well. Thank you very much. We end with this contribution.
Judgment morning, I'm by the gate and I'm waiting, because I'm begging the master, give me our quick Peter. Sinners coming, with them I go be dealing. Because the things that they do me, I want to fix them personally. Peter wait, Peter look Cecil Rhodes by the gate. Peter look the Englishman, we send Cecil Rhodes to Africa land. Peter take Drake, take Raleigh, but leave Victoria for me. Peter I just don't care what you say, but Mussolini he can't get away. Why? This is my time for burning. I'm burning. Blazing. Last year I sing, I taking my wife to party. People vex like hell 'cause I say my wife and not their beauty. So the next weekend on the papers, them boys start writing. Yes, they're trying to tell the world it's smart that the black man singing. So before them reporters put my career in more jeopardy. And not me to sing nothing again about party. But when the fans and them around the world listen to what I have to say. Anyway that I go, anyway that I pass, they keep balling out. No way, no, this party can't done. Black man, your fans having fun. Black man, German, not a one. This party can't done. Come with it, your fans want to party. Come with it, jam a party song. Come with it, we just want to roll back all night long. Come with it, your fans want to shake up. Come with it, build my party song. Come with it, it's you make we boogie all year round. Stop all housework you're doing. Tonight we going and have some fun. I just feel it's a party. put on something sexy, so you'll be free to move around. Make sure the children okay. We ain't coming home until morning come. Tonight the black man feeling the party. Tonight the black man feeling the jam, 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 jam. Tonight the black man just feels the boogie woogie. Come on, hold on to your man, and then we do a little oh. Happy times again. But the will to recover in my people like I'm confident. Although many may seem to feel that I talk is nonsense, but the majority of we decide we're not going to run, because now is the time to show we patriotism. For we country building, it's got its power. So our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it